Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Engaging the Phenomenon. And today we have two special guests. We have with us Mark Sims and Daniel Sheehan. Welcome, guys.
Hi, thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you.
And now you guys are, put together a pretty incredible event called the Making Contact Convergence. But there is also the Making Contact Campus. But just for listeners here, could you just give us an introduction to what is the Making Contact Convergence?
The Making Contact Convergence is our inaugural event on a platform called the Making Contact Campus, which is a virtual 3D world where there are office buildings and various venues for hosting community gatherings. They could be events, they could be private gatherings, classes. We could have film festivals and art contests there. So it's an attempt to establish a community hub for the CE5 movement and anybody interested in having a discussion about initiating contact with extraterrestrials. So last year I did the Harmonic Convergence event, and this is the next iteration of that, but we're doing it in this virtual place. And as you know, James, because you were part of the observation deck, you did a show there with Richard Dolan. So we learned about this virtual platform from Captain Ron and some of his events that he started there. And he and I worked out an agreement, and this now has, I've taken over effectively the contract for this platform and have renamed it and rebranded it for this community hub that we're calling the campus, or the Contact Campus, or the Making Contact Campus. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and a lot of people are going to recognize the one of the symbols that you use is actually from Alan Steinfeld. Alan Steinfeld's new book, Making Contact, right?
That's right. Yeah, he's a very dear friend, and I was actually there in Sedona back in early May, on May 2nd, in fact, when he launched his book in Sedona, and we did a 3-day event there, doing a CE5 each night on Zoom live, and broadcast that, streamed that video to anybody who joined us, and that was in celebration of his book launch. And so he had offered to offer the graphic and that very iconic looking UFO as our first kind of graphic or brand for this. But we have a more general brand that we're developing, or maybe a more specific brand is a better name for it, for the campus. So it's its own platform, and we can host other events. Like we are actually hosting the Bringers of the Light event that the UK organization started by Rachel and David Murphy Bonner with Multidimensional Show, the Multidimensional Show. So, they were doing that physically in the UK. I was going to be one of their presenters and lecturers, and they had to cancel because of COVID. So we're doing it and supporting them virtually. So this is going to be a platform for other events to host virtually as well as physically. And we're going to continue, bringing traffic and keeping it fresh and keeping it relevant, and continuing this discussion about establishing a citizens diplomacy initiative for establishing diplomatic relations with extraterrestrials. And how do we go about that? How does that discussion begin among the human family at a very serious level, and make it transparent and inclusive so people from around the world can engage in that discussion? So we felt a virtual 3D environment where people have a custom avatar and that they create and then bring into the campus. They can participate in this process and help us do this.
Definitely. And I actually want to get into some of the speakers, because you got a lot of really interesting speakers here. but you touched on it a little bit there, but the idea of a citizens diplomatic initiative for contact, both you and Danny, I'd like to hear about, like, why is that important?
I'll let Danny field that question.
Well, yes, James, the reality is that for many decades, for 75 years, for example, the United States political and military leadership found it in their interest to have this dialectical confrontation with the Soviet Union, primarily at the behest of the American corporations, who were upset about this major movement in the world that was undermining the kind of robber baron era of being able to kind of foist their economic interests on everybody in the world. And we saw that this was leading people to a potential total destruction of the world, with two super powers armed with nuclear weapons, et cetera. And there wasn't much progress being made with they were not having a total destruction of the world, but that was the best you could say about it. And the bottom line is that we citizens decided we had to intervene in this whole process. And we reached out to start having meetings with Gorbachev and Brezhnev and a number of other people. We started a citizens diplomacy program. It was going on. Lots of people in different walks of life and civilian life would go over to the Soviet Union and talk with them. And they had people coming back and forth to Esalen, the Esalen Institute. And we were, sitting around at a kind of resort, talking to them, et cetera. And that really is what generated Glasnost and Perestroika, in the decision on the part of Gorbachev to step back out of the Cold War and try to undertake a serious disarmament program. This is analogous to that. And that is that the military and corporate leadership of the United States and the leaders of other nations around the world have for 75 years been engaging in this issue with regard to UFOs, in gathering information, keeping it secret, lying about it, dissembling, actually attacking and destroying the reputations of people in the world who've been trying to get this information to come forward. And so that we realize that if we're going to really be successful in this, in time to deal with the issues of global climate change, massive nuclear weapons spread, the building of more and more of these private nuclear power plants along the sea coasts, with the rising sea levels of having potentially 115 different Fukushimas with these nuclear plants that are right on the oceans, that the citizens have to rise up because everything that's being done by the political leadership is too slow and too little. And so what we've decided is that we have to reach out directly to the people that are coming in these UFOs, reach out to them both on their planets and in their vehicles when they're coming here, to try to open a citizens dialogue with the beings. That's what this is really all about. The CE5 experience is demonstrative of how effective this can be. This is how Mark, for example, had his first contact experience and opened up this kind of dialogue that he has with a particular extraterrestrial being. That we're trying to open this type of experience to everybody. Now, this is a sophisticated process. This is not just, just throw ourselves open, say, here, why don't you all come and take whatever resources you want in our world, and and we'll give you anything you want. And it's not can't be naive like that. It's got to be intelligent. It's got to be sophisticated. We have to have people that are trained in the arts of diplomacy and negotiations and all of that. But we have to get this started. And so what we're in the process of doing is trying to recruit the people around our planet who are interested in this type of an outreach and a citizens diplomacy, to bring us all together to have a conversation about the complexities of this particular issue, and set up a training center where people can actually be trained. Now, we're going to begin this process virtually, where we can do as much of the training as we can, possibly virtually, at this New Paradigm Institute that is a virtual member of this Making Contact campus. But we also have a real place. We have a 70,000 square foot, Art Deco hotel that's been provided to us 100 miles north of San Francisco on this big 18.5-mile long lake, where people can actually come together and physically gather, be trained, do holotropic breathing exercises, learn about the art of diplomacy, learn about the potential of being deceived and trying to figure out how to establish trust. All of these extraordinarily important aspects of diplomacy people have to be trained to do this. But it has to start out with a goodwill, a desire to actually have a peaceful and constructive relationship with the beings from the extraterrestrial civilization, not to have some sort of confrontation where we are attempting to foist the will of primarily of our major corporations, onto the rest of the solar system and the rest of the universe, so that they can exploit the resources of other planets for their own private gain. That is not the way this needs to go. We need to establish a more good faith outreach to the extraterrestrial beings and begin to get them to share with us at least their position with regard to why they're here, what they're doing here, what their interests are, so that we can begin to take this into account as citizens. Now, that's an extraordinarily important thing. And one of the other characteristics, I think, that is a feature of most of the people that are involved in the ET experience is trying to explore the issue of the theological, kind of spiritual, metaphysical dimensions of this relationship. We see this as a major feature of our particular species, that virtually everywhere at all times, down through the ages, the spiritual faculties of our human family have been perceived to be a central feature of our species, and that we want to explore with the extraterrestrial beings what their experience is with this. Well, what type of a theological worldview do they have? What interest do they have in the spiritual evolution of their species and of other species in the system? Those are some of the elements that are at play here, and we do not want it to be dominated by simply economic self-interest and military self-interest, which seems to be the guiding principles of the major nation states.
I have two questions there for you, Danny. One, you mentioned the Institute. Is that the Institute you had been referring to for quite a while?
Oh, yes. This is the New Paradigm Institute that we've been talking about for many years. This is what Dr. John Mack and I started talking about back in 1994. When he had this major confrontation with Harvard University. He came to conclude, Dr. John Mack came to conclude as the head of the Department of Clinical Psychiatry, that Harvard University was a representative of a very specific worldview. It was a scientific, logical, positivist, materialist worldview. And that was why they couldn't accept the whole idea that either there's an extraterrestrial civilization, and or that at least some of the vehicles that have been spotted in the UFO encounters may well be vehicles from an extraterrestrial civilization. It was just anathema to them, the entire concept of it. And this is what generated the confrontation with Dr. Mack. So when we finally resolved that peacefully, he decided that what we really needed to do is to try to establish there in Cambridge, where Harvard University is, an institute to be able to deal with this whole new paradigm that has to be developed, a whole new human worldview, to be able to integrate the reality of extraterrestrial civilization and what our relationship might be with it. That's where this whole conversation started, and it's been going on for many years since then. So that's what it's evolved to now, is our having gotten this major 70,000 square foot Art Deco hotel up 100 miles north of San Francisco. But given all the challenges of having to get 1929 wiring all fixed up and build the place out so it can actually be a physical location for people to come together to discuss these things, Mark, whose background is in computer graphics and computer programming, has said, wait a second, why don't we establish the New Paradigm Institute virtually, so we can bring people in from anywhere in the world to sit down and have this very creative process of having people have the avatars that can sit at a table together to have this conference. We can talk to each other face to face by including plasma televisions, with the actual presence of the person right behind their avatar eventually. Why don't we do it this way in doing a lot of the preparation work that we need to do for this? And so it was Mark's idea to have this be a virtual New Paradigm Institute, and that's what we're involved in starting now.
Yeah, and I just there's quite a few names on the list of people who are going to be presenting at this event. I want to point out one remarkable one because I've mentioned this gentleman several times on my channel because his public reaction has been, I think, sober considering the implications of all this. Is you got Eric Weinstein coming, huh?
Yes, Eric, no, Eric, it was extremely interesting. Back on April 9th of this year, Eric Weinstein invited me to be on his program, the portal, because of my work as being legal counsel for the New York Times and the Pentagon Papers case, having done the case that established the right of journalists to protect our confidential news sources, my having been the legal counsel in the Karen Silkwood case to stop the construction of all private nuclear power plants. I've been legal counsel in the Iran-Contra case to expose the entire off-the-shelf enterprise, a number of cases of that nature, including the Watergate burglary and others. So he had me on his show for 5.5 hours, and we went through a lot of the history of those cases, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, I get a call at like 11 o'clock at night, and some friends of mine called up and said, "Hey, this Eric Weinstein, the guy whose show that you were on, he's on the Clubhouse talk, and he's talking about UFOs. It's the first time we've ever heard him talking about UFOs at all. You ought to get on there to talk with him." So I popped onto the Clubhouse thing, and he right away said, "Oh, look, we have Danny Sheehan here, who's done a number of really interesting cases in the past. They don't have anything to do with UFOs or anything, but let's see what he thinks about this." And so he, completely unknowing what my background was in this, called me up, quote, to the stage and asked me what I thought about it. And then, of course, I revealed to him the fact that I was the attorney back in 2001 for the Disclosure Project. I was the legal counsel for the citizens hearings with David Bassett. I was, legal counsel in the Jimmy Carter analysis of UFOs and extraterrestrial life. I've been at this for some serious period of time, and so I kind of revealed that in the Clubhouse conversation. And then Eric just became extraordinarily more interested in this whole program because he viewed me as being a very, very serious investigator and researcher. And I had been legal counsel for the Jesuit order at their national headquarters in their social ministry office in Washington. So he began to invite me to come and talk with him. And he and I had a lot of conversations about this, and he's become more and more interested in this particular subject. And so that he has agreed to be on our discussion to sort of anchor a particular place of a person who previously didn't believe in any of this stuff and who now sees that this is an extraordinarily important discussion that has to be held among our people. So he's going to be one of the first featured speakers at our whole event.
Yeah, that's going to be incredible. I think a lot of people are going to want to hear what Eric Weinstein has to say about the subject. Again, his tweets on the subject so far have been legendary, because he's reacting like people should be reacting, like, holy crap, this is actually real. How come it's not a bigger deal? So,
yeah,
a lot of respect.
Why isn't everybody's hair on fire over this thing? He's saying, look, because his hair is on fire over this subject, and he plans to dig in and get a number of other of these Mensa type level characters that he hangs out with. I would say characters, people, he hangs out with to get them interested in this. So he's going to try to gather a lot of these genius level people to turn their attention to this thing now. There's no reason to be afraid of this subject anymore.
Right, and I think that's the case. I did want to bring up some of the other members, but just for Mark, I'm on my mobile right now, so I don't know if I can do a screen share.
Okay, well, if you just do,
I can see you. Yeah.
Yeah, you can make me host and or co-host, and that gives me the ability to share my screen, and I can give people a quick tour of the campus. And so if you do that, I'll be able to do that. I'll be able to share with everyone else.
All right. Let's see. All right.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to take you into the campus, and this is the welcome area. And in fact, there's somebody here next to me. Kate is one of our volunteers. Hi, Kate.
Hello. How's it going?
So here, I'm going to go over there to her, and we can just have a conversation. You see that table there with the dashed blue line indicates a private area. So if you're sitting with others in that blue dashed area, nobody's going to hear you who's not inside of that area. But this is called the welcome area, and the welcome area has a kiosk here where there will be a message board about the schedule through the week of our event. And then these are links that you can click on and will take you to like support or the schedule on the website. So by clicking on these buttons here on the wall, your native browser on your computer will open up and show you the schedule. We have an art contest, and the speakers for the event will be shown. This is the actual map of the campus. And if I click on this plus sign, this will blow it up so I can you can get a better view of it. So this is a bird's eye view of the Making Contact campus. And you can see there where we're located in the middle of the campus. And on the left are all the different places or venues that you can teleport to from your go-to menu. So up here in the left-hand corner is a list of the available places you can teleport to. And so if I teleport, for instance, to the expo hall, that's number 2 here. That's that location right there. And number 3 is the auditorium. So the auditorium is right here on the map. And in fact, what I'll do is just close this down, and I'm going to walk over to the auditorium. And by the way, before I leave this area, I just want to mention this welcome desk is where our volunteers like Kate will be seated during the event to help them get to the venue or where the speakers are currently at. So there she is, and she'll have that special badge. That's our new logo. Hard to see right now, but you'll see it around campus here in a moment. And so so that's what's going on. I'm going to run up here to the auditorium.
Oh man, you're fast.
Yeah. And so this is our auditorium, and we've created some custom art up here in the auditorium. And this is what it'll look like from sitting down in the front row. And I can change my perspective by hitting this menu at the top. So this is the center screen, the left screen. This gives you a view of all 3 screens with the person speaking on the podium. And so this is what the experience is like for an attendee who's sitting in the audience watching a presentation. And these screens are available to the presenter for slideshows or videos or other content that they want to present during their lecture. So that's this auditorium seats 2,000 people. I'm going to turn off my microphone so you don't see that big balloon popping up. So now I'm muted, and we've curated some beautiful artwork. This was done by Malcolm Carter. He's an amazing artist from Canada who we've engaged with to do all the artwork here. And so that's our auditorium where most of the speakers will be presenting. But we also have a area that we call the Cyberspace Lounge. And this will be the first place where people will be coming.
The Bay Area.
Oh, here we go.
And Mike's in the room.
Hi, Michael.
Ah.
Whoops, hi, Michael.
Hey.
I'm doing a live show on engaging the phenomenon with James Islandoli. And so I'm just doing a tour right now. So you'll excuse me if I just pass on through. So we've got this lounge as a location where people can come in and choose and get to talk to each other, and they can sit. Well, hi, how are you, Carly?
Hello.
Good. I'm doing
How
a
are you?
live tour on engaging the phenomenon with James Islandoli. And so Danny Sheehan and I are right now being interviewed for his podcast.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, well, I'll take some people
Oh,
aside
okay, no
here.
problem. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Kate.
Hi.
So James, what you can do with your avatar is you can dance, for instance. We can pipe in music, and I can dance with my avatar. And we've actually had line dances and with small groups of people in here. We had about 20 the other night, our opening
Yeah.
night, all doing a line dance together. It was really fun. And so we're going to be doing music videos, premiering some new music that nobody has heard before for this event. And you can see it's really quite a beautiful place, how we've curated this.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks really nice.
Yeah.
And there's Michael dancing, doing the swing. So, it's really encouraging people to engage and interact and build community. So this is ultimately going to become a community hub where people can come together and have interactive discussions on various topics, all, having to do with the Citizens Diplomacy Initiative and making contact and doing global CE5s in an attempt to engage and establish a formal program to outreach to our STAR family.
Mark, do you want to show James like one of the conference rooms where we might have a panel,
Yeah.
discussions, how we can sit people at the table with their avatars and have a conversation around the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's well, I'm going to take you to the Experiencer Hall. This is one of the places that Danny is referring to. And so we can have an experiencer speaking here, and those web boards up on the stage are accessible for doing presentations. And then we have the tables for people to gather and have private discussions about their experiences or about, a specific topic related to a citizens diplomacy initiative. And so this is one of the many venues where we will be, doing activities and programs during the event. And when I step out of here, I'm coming out right outside the campus. Well, this actually takes me back to the welcome area where we were before. And so we have, let's see, let's go to the beach. This is a fun spot where we will be having programs and activities. This is a stage on the beach where people will be listening to music, and we can play videos. This is a little DJ booth. I can crawl up here since I have the proper permissions. And from here, I can play music and control what's on the screen. And avatars, people with their avatars can dance, or we can give presentations from here. So this is another one of the venues. And then these boats are actually drivable. You can jump inside of them and start, going around the island. Whoops, got hung up there on the rocks. Here, we'll go this way. So I've got the sound turned off right now to help,
Yeah.
But so we're really encouraging a community space, a hub where people can come together and have this discussion. And we're going to be adding more functionality to this so that it's a resource center as well as a community center. And we have some really big plans and announcements that we'll be making, when we have our event.
Yeah, and the this campus is a long-term campus, right? It's not just for the event, right?
That's right. So after our event, we're going to be having other events. I already mentioned the the Bringers of the Light conference will be hosted here. So we're making it available to them. And one of the things we're talking about is having people that have podcasts like yours. You could be doing it virtually from here, as well as from wherever you're at now. But what's advantageous about having it here is that your followers can watch a live podcast and do a Q&A session live on your program with the guest and their avatar if they have one. And so that's where we're going to go with this. We're going to keep it fresh. We're going to keep things ongoing. And we'll have free memberships eventually. We're going to have a free membership program that gives you limited access to certain areas of the campus. And then we anticipate having, a monthly membership where you can come and have more access to the campus and take classes. We'll have free classes. There's classrooms here that we can make available to lecturers and presenters and make them available. And those classrooms can be set up so that they're password protected, and only people with the password can gain entry into the classroom where that presenter is giving a class. So this is going to become a full-featured, multi-purpose platform where people from around the world can gather, and it's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we want to engage in the international CE5 community and other organizations that have, synergy and add value to this question of how to go about making contact with our star family.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of the event, I wanted to get actually Danny's word on this, because we were talking about it before we went on. Was that you got a lot of interesting guests here that are going to be presenting at the Making Contact event. Some would even sound, I guess you could say, controversial. So like Marshall Van Summers, for instance, people have said, oh, he's against contact. So what are some of your perspectives on that, and why he's being part of the event and so on?
Well, it's important if our human family is going to have an intelligent discussion about the issue of contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. We have to have people who are setting forth different perspectives on the question in order to have it fleshed out. It isn't going to do any good to have hand-pick people who just all take one position on the whole thing and potentially miss out on reflecting on other points of view. Now, but we want the people to be serious people. They need to be cordial and civil. We don't need people here who are going to insult everybody and consider anybody who doesn't agree with them to be some horrible betrayer of them, or so. We can't have any of that stuff. We're going to try to get people to stay centered and respectful of each other and have an intelligent discussion. So you can see that people like Eric Weinstein, for example, he used to be critical of people who thought that there was an extraterrestrial civilization, who thought that UFOs were real, who thought that there was such a thing as a potential telepathic communication. And now he has started to get more and more information, and he has a very important perspective to bring to this. And there are some people like Marshall Summers who is perfectly cognizant of a lot of the facts about what's going on, but has in fact had what he views to be a different experience with extraterrestrials through telepathic communications. And he's not suggesting that they're coming here to eat us or to take our children or do anything like that. He's just saying, look, we need to be a bit more cautious in reflecting upon what the full repercussions are, that we need to be careful not to have our entire human civilization kind of just simply absorbed into some sort of a major galactic civilization and lose all of the uniqueness of our particular culture, our particular human species. So he's sounded some notes of caution, but that's what's going to be generating the conversation so that we can focus on these questions and get a discussion around the table, not have any one person dominate it, insisting upon everybody agree with them, but to go around the table to share their different points of view, to have people that are first string people in this conversation all sit together at a table and have this conversation. Whereas thousands of people would say, boy, would I ever like to be a fly on the wall in that conversation? Well, here they are. They get to be the people sitting in the audience. And that's what we're going to be doing here.
Yeah, and otherwise, I'd ask, how did you get Luis Elizondo to participate in an event called Making Contact? Go ahead.
Well, it was interesting that Lou has agreed to participate in this primarily because I asked him to.
Yeah,
I'm his lawyer, and I suggested to him this would be much to everyone's advantage to have him participate in this conversation. He has already taken a very clear position that he believes that the vast majority of these UFO encounters that have been credibly verified are not, in fact, some super secret technology of our people, though some of them may be, but the vast majority of them are not. And he is completely convinced, as a lifelong counterintelligence expert in the United States government, and as the director of the classified program studying UFOs, that it's infinitesimally unlikely, or infinitesimally likely that these are Russian or Chinese, because he said it would be the biggest catastrophic failure of intelligence in the history of the world if China had or Russia had a technology like this and we didn't know about it. In fact, he knows we do know, and they don't have it. So that then the question arises: well, what are these things? And where are they coming from, and who's behind them? And so that he's willing to have a discussion about what the different potential theories are as to where they come from. And one of them is, of course, that they are extraterrestrial. This is what Dr. Eric Davis communicated to the Senate Intelligence Committee back in October, that those inside the government who have looked closely at this phenomenon are of the opinion that these are extraterrestrial in origin. And Lou is willing to join into that conversation and have the discussion about this. And others, who have come to grips with this issue, come to see that that is a very salient question here, and he's willing to discuss it.
As kind of just part of that conversation is, are there any updates on the Inspector General conversation right now?
Yes, that we were there a month ago, meeting with the Inspector General people. They've brought the people from different divisions of the Inspector General's office that might be pertinent to this basic evaluation of the UFO phenomenon. Just last Thursday, Chris Mellon went and met with the Inspector General's people to share information that he has about this entire investigation and what he understands to have been some of the activities involved. Because the Inspector General's people are completely in the dark about this. This has been going on now for 75 years, with elements of the United States Defense Department being involved in not only monitoring these UFOs, but at least in my opinion, and the opinion of many experts, actually having recovered more than one of these vehicles that has crashed, and that they're involved in analyzing its technology, et cetera. And yet that information is being kept away from the vast majority of people, not only inside the United States military, but inside the United States government, who would need to know about this, are being kept in the dark about this. And so one of them is the Inspector General's office of the Defense Department. They don't know, they don't have a clue about what this is all about. So we are in the process of attempting to explain to them what the information is that we know about these vehicles, so that they can begin to try to determine what type of protocol the United States Defense Department should have with regard to this phenomenon, because they don't have a clue yet, but they're in the process of doing that.
Yeah, can the Inspector General subpoena people or to call people in? I mean,
Well, the Inspector General sure can call people in. They don't usually have to use a subpoena because the Defense Department has control over people that are Defense Department employees. So at least all of the people that are employed by the Defense Department in one agency or another have to come in when the Inspector General tells them to come in, and they have to answer questions because they're subject to discipline inside the military if they don't comply with the Inspector General's requests. So there are other agencies such as the Central Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency and others that are not directly under the auspices, obviously, of the Inspector General's office, but the Inspector General's office is going to be working very closely with the Director of National Intelligence. And the Director of National Intelligence has jurisdiction over people in these other agencies and can, if she chooses to do so, make them talk, and make them talk to the Inspector General's office.
Yeah, well, because I've talked about it on this channel many times, the Wilson Davis notes. It's a popular subject, I guess you can say nowadays, where there's this notes taken by Dr. Eric Davis after he had a meeting with Thomas Wilson in 2002. Now, could just call Wilson in and ask him about something like that?
Sure, they can.
And if he has, but say he's like, he has his clearances, whatever, does he have the right to say, I don't know anything? Can he just?
Well, no, he can't lie to them unless he doesn't know anything. I mean, he has now taken the public position that's a completely bogus set of notes, that it doesn't exist. But the fact is that if in fact he were briefed in at a high level of security, he would think it's okay to say that,
Right.
at least to a public forum. He doesn't believe there's anything wrong with lying to the American public. I'm not saying he is lying. I'm saying,
Right.
but you saw Oliver North, for example, in our case, in the Iran-Contra case. He stood right in front of Congress and said, sure, I lied to you. This is a classified program, and it's so I'm going to lie to you if you ask me if I know anything about it. And nobody did a thing to him.
Yeah.
Nobody. Yeah, he flat out admitted he lied to Congress. They never did a thing to him. They ended up eventually, the special prosecutor Lawrence Walsh charging him with lying about not being completely honest about having taken a security fence to put around his home given to him by Richard Secord, which is like nothing, compared to all the other lying he did to Congress. So there's a whole bunch of protocols that are going on inside the Defense Department because the United States government, ever since the National Security Act of 1947, believes that it's a national security state, and that somehow we are involved in this protracted war against everybody else in the world who doesn't agree to have us dominate them. And anybody who doesn't subject themselves to our domination is viewed as hostile. And that's basically part of the perspective that some of the Defense Department has about the UFOs. They are not subjecting themselves to our control. They're not getting permission from us to fly in our planetary airspace. And so therefore, they constitute a threat to the national security of the United States. Well, that is something that has to be analyzed by the Defense Department. Is that a proper perspective for an agency of our government to be taking? And if not, how are we going to change it?
And I have two other questions regarding the Inspector General. Have they talked to Dr. Eric Davis, the Inspector General, number one? And number two, I believe you mentioned a gentleman from the Air Force that was sitting in on some of these conversations.
Yep.
So for Eric Davis, have they brought him in?
I don't know. I don't know who all the people are yet. We're going to be going to see them again sometime this month, probably before the end of the month, and we'll see whether they are open to answering questions to us as to who they have talked to, who they haven't. What we have done is we've communicated with them the names of some of the people they should talk to.
Right.
And we're going to see whether it's going to be reciprocal. Are they going to be able to tell us who they've talked to, who they haven't talked to? They're probably more likely to tell us who they haven't talked to yet. To see whether we have some more names for them.
Now, and a gentleman just came out with a book recently, Ross Coulthart, called In Plain Sight. And he mentioned that, during his investigation, after, he puts out the book, so people are kind of reaching out to him from intelligence and so on. And the impression that he got was that the U.S. Air Force was trying to shut this down, what's going on right now, with things starting to open up. Is that reflective in what you're seeing with the gentleman, the U.S. Air Force guy?
No, he was perfectly cordial to us and was asking questions, and we were conveying information to him. And he was brought in by the Inspector General to sit and participate in the conversations. And I'm assuming that more people are going to be brought into these conversations with Lou and me.
Is that Air Force gentleman at a high rank?
Yeah, he was at high rank.
Yeah. But then there's the question of, well, it doesn't matter of your rank if you're read into a program or not.
That's
So
right.
you run into that problem of the chain of command being, thrown to the side in some of these programs, the way it seems.
Yeah,
Just like how ATIP, people were saying, oh, Lou didn't Lou didn't work with ATIP and they didn't investigate UFOs. Even at that unclassified level, that it seemed that the chain of command, you had to have the Senate Intelligence Committee, trying to get information on some of this stuff. And, it's like, why didn't they know this whole time?
Well, this is one of the problems that the Inspector General is looking at. You say, wait a second, when you have an entire chain of military command and there's some other kind of program going on that totally disregards the chain of command, not only the chain of command between and among ranking officers, but the chain of command between the civilian and military. When you have a president of the United States that is not briefed in on these programs and is told that they're not going to brief him in because he doesn't have a need to know, even after he's asked for the information, that constitutes a significant problem. That's a problem inside our constitutional democracy. That's a constitutional question of the separation, not only the separation of powers, because that's inside the executive branch. The executive branch is all under the president. And so that you would think they would have to give the president information if he asked for it. And if they refuse to do that, somebody ought to investigate as to why that isn't happening. And the Inspector General's office is one of the right ones to do it.
And for during this whole process, is there anything that you learned that was a surprise to you?
Well, I'm not at liberty to discuss everything that we've discussed so far, not because I'm not inclined to do so, and I refuse to take any security clearance here. But I do know that in the spirit of trying to promote and promulgate this conversation to get as much done as we can possibly do, it's probably going to be appropriate not to say some things that I know about. Part of it is because I don't want to freak out the Inspector General, who thinks I may be talking out of shop. But the short answer is no. There's nothing that I have been told so far that I didn't basically know already. And that's why when I was approached to get a security clearance, I said, listen, years ago, I was told by Robert Fink, who was the chief investigator for Bella Abzug, who was assigned to the Congressional investigation of the CIA and all, he says, don't ever take a security clearance, because I know, Danny, from your past and your experience, you can find out anything you want.
Yeah.
You don't need to have them telling the whole world you violated your security clearance because you found out something that they didn't even tell you about. So I'm not going to take a security clearance, and I can find out almost anything that we need to know.
Yeah. And are you guys facing any kind of resistance?
No, Lou was facing all kinds of resistance inside the Defense Department when he was trying to get information. That was part of what he was upset about. He said, look, I've been delegated by the United States Congress to, pursuant to a specific authorization to conduct this investigation. And I've got all kinds of people telling me they won't tell me the information they've got. That's quite upsetting. And then he knew that they were lying. They were lying to the public about things he knew they knew, and they were lying about it. And so that he became quite upset about this. He tried to communicate with the Secretary of Defense, with the Secretary of Defense Mattis, and his superiors were cutting him off from even having a line of communication to the Secretary. So that this was not acceptable. That's fairly clear. That the inside our discussions with the Inspector General's office is perfectly clear that there were all kinds of things happening, blocking that investigation that were totally unconstitutional and illegal and in violation of military protocol. And yet they seem to be aware of the fact that there is some sort of special exception for this particular program that
Yeah.
somehow the law doesn't apply to it. Somehow there's been some system set up that takes outside of the law, outside of our constitutional framework of government, the actual supervision of this particular program. Somebody's got to do something about that. And this is the time to get that done.
And yeah, so exactly where I was going is what's the best case scenario from this evaluation or investigation going on with the Inspector General and the UAP issue?
Well, the best outcome would be that it evolves from a mere evaluation into an actual investigation. That they need to start to set up a bit of an adversarial attitude, inside the Inspector General's office. They're not here just to make things better for the Defense Department, though that's what they say, that they've got to figure out who are the bad guys here. If there are bad guys involved in doing stuff that's unconstitutional, stuff that's illegal, trying to destroy the lives of honest citizens who are trying to report something in good faith, if they have to start investigating that, because it's quite clear that people aren't willing to come forward and admit some of the things that are going on here. So I'm hoping the best thing would be is for this to evolve from a mere evaluation into an active investigation, and that the investigation pulls out the truth of this and gets the truth completely communicated to the Inspector General's office, and then gets completely communicated to the President of the United States and to the officials, the civilian officials that are, whoops, are you still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, something
here.
happened. Something, I just got unzoomed here or something. All right, I'm just hoping that will happen, and that we can get our entire government first with our citizens on board, finding out what is going on with regard to the UFO issue, and we can start to organize around our planet to start to prepare for how we establish appropriate diplomatic relations with the extraterrestrial beings, if in fact it's true that the vast majority of these UFO sightings that have been confirmed turn out to be extraterrestrial in origin. That we need to come to grips with this question as a human family now.
And I think that if the citizens of this planet were told point blank, listen, we're being engaged by some other intelligence that's technological and advanced, I think most people's thinking mind would go there, to the idea of contacts.
Yeah.
But I know you got to go, Danny. But I wanted to ask you one more question.
Sure.
There's been a lot of talking and whispers about congressional hearings, both classified and public. What's your read on congressional hearings taking place, both classified and then a public version?
Well, I think the problem with most of the public presentations that Congress engages in is they're just dog and pony shows. They're completely choreographed. People know what the questions are that are going to be asked. They've filtered out information that they think the American public shouldn't know. And so that it's I do not think that immediate public hearings are going to be anything other than just contrived. I think that what we need to do is have many profound investigations going on by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, the Senate Armed Services Committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee. That this is a subject that needs to be looked into by a half a dozen different committees in Congress, both in the Senate and the House. And then what they have to do is set up some sort of a method by means of which the actual factual information that is known by every single agency and agent of our government and the scientific community and the corporate world is gathered together and made available for our congressional representatives. Our congressional representatives have to have some means of evaluating this information. I think both the House and the Senate need to be involved in that so that we have a collective view on the part of our representatives. And then a conscious decision has to be made to reveal as much of this information to our people and to the people of the world as can be done without damaging some legitimate interest. Now,
Right.
that's where the big rub comes as to what is a legitimate interest in keeping any of this confidential. I think that that's probably minimal. This is the discussion I had when I was representing the New York Times in the Pentagon Papers case. The Nixon administration and the Justice Department under Mitchell, they took the position that every single page, every single paragraph, every single sentence, every single word in 47 volumes of this top secret program were classified, and that it would irreparably damage the national security of the United States to reveal certain information in there. But they would never tell us what that information was. And so we insisted upon revealing all of it, all 47 volumes of it. Okay, so now that we can go through that process again if they want. I'm experienced at how to do it. We can assemble the same team of lawyers that we did to represent the New York Times to get that done again. But I want the United States Congress to come forward and to insist upon it being briefed in full about what the information is that is known about this phenomenon. And then we can deal with our congressional representatives to see what it is that can be and needs to be revealed to the rest of the people. I think that probably 95% of the information ought to be revealed to the people. And I'm not even clear at this point in time what the 5% might be that should not be. But there may be something there, but I certainly don't know what it is yet. And I'm pretty thoughtful about this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think one of the major things is at least let the people know the fundamental reality aspect of that there's some kind of other intelligence.
Absolutely.
And I mean, 'cause that fact alone, I think, would really open the minds and prepare us for another wave, really another way of thinking that's hopefully a little more mature, knowing that we're.
Well, that's what our conversation, the conversation that we're going to be beginning on the 18th of August, going through the 22nd, is that conversation is assuming now that it's been confirmed that the UFOs are real and confirmed that the UFOs are not Russian or Chinese, and that the vast majority of them, at least, are not ours. And you have the people that are in charge of the investigation inside the Pentagon thinking the likelihood is that they're extraterrestrial. And you have the Catholic Church calling for a major discussion among the people about what the implications are of the existence of an extraterrestrial civilization. That we need to have that conversation now. We cannot sit around waiting for the government, even though I want all of these things to be going on inside the government and inside our Congress. I don't think we citizens can sit around waiting for this. Just the same way we've been sitting around waiting for them to solve global climate change. They're not doing it. And so that we have to do this. This has to be an uprising, a civilian, peaceful uprising on the part of our citizens to get this job done. The job needs to get done to stop global climate change, which is a lot of the UFO contacts have been warning us about. And we've got to have an uprising to get this information spread out about who this extraterrestrial civilization is, what their intentions are, and what kind of constructive and safe diplomatic relations we can have with them. That's what we need to do now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Danny, you might have to go now.
I do.
And so thank you so much for coming. But Mark, you still here?
Mark can stay with you. Mark.
Yeah.
Sorry about it, Mark. I didn't mean to.
Oh, no problem, Danny. That was great. I was riveted.
Okay. All right, you guys keep on going. I'll go and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks for coming, Danny.
Thank you. Thanks, James. Oh, there you are. Okay.
So James,
all right.
I want to share my screen with you, with your viewers, about the website that we have made a special promo code for all of your listeners watching this to take $100 off, or to save $100 off of the standard ticket price for this event. So I'm going to pull this up here real quick, and let me just pull up the main site. Here's the Making Contact Convergence ticket. So if you just go to the main page, there will be, let's see here. Okay, I guess I can't get there from to the main homepage, but if you select this register button, you can add a single ticket or multiple tickets to the cart. And then if people type in James save 100 without any spaces and apply the coupon, they'll get $100 off. So that comes to a total of $149 to buy a ticket to this 5-day event. And so this is a really big deal because it's our inaugural event on a platform that is the first of its kind, a virtual conference of 5 days in length with these amazing speakers. And people who attend will be able to access a video portal if they miss one of the lectures. And I just want to, again, take you through some of the speakers. We've got Jimmy Blanchette, who is going to be talking about his new protocol. This is the one based on his radio contact protocol, but he's got a new name for it. And he's going to be sharing some new revelations that he just found out in the last week that he's shared with me. So on the evening of the first day, August 18th, we are going to be on the platform together for 2 hours, sharing some of the most exciting news we have about this new contact modality and why it's so revolutionary. Ralph Blumenthal, who was the journalist with the New York Times who broke the story back in December of 2017, featuring Lou Elizondo, and then those very famous Navy videos of Go Fast, Gimbal, and Tic Tac. Jimmy Church is going to be on our show. Cheryl Costa, who just published a new book with her partner on all the UFO sightings within the US from 2000 till 2020. And she's got an amazing amount of data and a knowledge base there that can be mined, and she'll be presenting that. Adam Curry from the Pear Institute at Princeton. Richard Dolan, who we all know and love, who's just one of the real rocks from a historical perspective. He's a good friend of yours and mine. And he'll be formally presenting on Saturday when we have Lou Elizondo on our panel. And he will also be talking about the latest news that he has. James Garrison from Ubiquity University, who's the co-founder and president of the Gorbachev Foundation and the State of the World Forum. So he's got a perspective from a theological standpoint because he has an MA in history from religion at Harvard University. He's a good longtime friend with Danny Sheehan, and he'll be talking about the theological questions and implications of extraterrestrial contact and how, we should prepare our religious leaders for this inevitability. Ray Hernandez, one of the real luminaries who's done so much for this movement with his Conscious and Contact Research Institute, where he's brought together some of the brightest minds studying this phenomenon and publishing the book that came out recently on non-human intelligence and the contact modalities. So he'll be doing a big presentation. Linda Moulton Howe, as you know, needs no introduction. I mean, a longtime investigative reporter and editor who's got her own program, and she's going to be on our panel for one of the nights. David Jacobs, who's with this International Center for Abduction Research, and he's one of the luminaries and a professor of history at Temple University. Captain Ron, who's our host and moderator. Dr. Jeffrey Kreipel from Rice University, who's been on the faculty and the graduate programs at the School of Humanities there, and is the Newton Razor Chair in Philosophy and Religious Thought at Rice. He's written numerous books, including co-authored books with Whitley Strieber. And so he'll be doing a formal presentation on the day, the Theological Questions Day. Barbara Lamb, another luminary who's been studying this phenomenon, and especially the abduction phenomenon, having interviewed as a clinical psychologist people who have been abducted and helping them deal with the trauma of that, and have helped through the arc of that traumatic experience into what now it seems to be moving into something that is more spiritual in nature, and something that these abductees see as a positive experience. We have Donald Schmidt, one of the co-founders of ICER, the International Center for Extraterrestrial Research, and his colleague, Victor Vigiani from Toronto, will be speaking. And Donald, as you know, is one of the foremost experts on the Roswell incident, and he'll be talking about that. You got Danny, who needs no more introduction. You have myself, who, I don't need to say anything more. My very dear friend, Alan Steinfeld, who recently published the book, Making Contact, will be with us and hosting a panel of experiencers on Saturday night. That's going to be amazing. We got Whitley Strieber, Marshall Van Summers, who we talked about earlier in your program, Dr. Barbara Vicar, who is a PhD in psychology from Union Institute and University and Goddard College. She's former president of Goddard College, and we'll be talking about some of the psychological aspects of our family, human family, making contact with extraterrestrials. John Valentino, who's a strategic investor with Peter Thiel in Private Investing. And the reason why we've brought him in here is because of his expertise in human consciousness in the material realm, having to do with the sciences that we believe are connected to the multidimensionality of this phenomenon. And he's also a very good friend of Eric Weinstein, who you mentioned earlier in the program. Victor Vigiani, who's news director with Zealand Communications, and then Eric Weinstein, who's a mathematician and economist. But what really impresses me about him is that he's a physicist and has put forth a new theory called geometric unity that may be the theory that unifies classical physics and general relativity with quantum mechanics. And so there are many that are thinking that this guy may be the guy who will end up unifying these two fields. And he's just a brilliant man. He's a member of Mensa, one of the smartest men in the scientific community. And he'll be talking about this, and we're really excited. He's going to be joining us on the very first day and speaking for an hour about his own kind of paradigm shift, because like Danny said earlier, that he didn't believe that we were being visited by extraterrestrials. He did believe that there very well could be life elsewhere in the universe, but that the distances between star systems was just too great for there to be a mission that could get a civilization or a ship from one star system to the other, in some time frame that would make it even possible. So now he's had a shift in his thinking because of the recent revelation about the Pentagon report and Lou Elizondo, and now having become good friends with Danny and learning about Danny's decades of research and background in this phenomenon, he's just totally open and excited about this discussion. So this is a powerful schedule of amazing speakers. We're taking this to a new level, having a very serious discussion about it, and we're trying to have a broad view of perspectives, and both professionally and philosophically coming together and having this discussion. And at the end of the day, what we hope will generate is a kind of memorandum of what would be the beginning of a formal white paper on establishing a citizens diplomacy initiative and what that would look like. And later, on this campus. We'll continue to have this discussion and events and meetings where people who are adding value to the discussion and fully engaged and want to participate and help develop policies and a curriculum for an academy where people can come and become trained in diplomacy and negotiating and are prepared for contact with extraterrestrials, can become ambassadors or emissaries for this movement. So that's what our ultimate goal is here.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. That's very that's getting right to it. And at the convergence, I know for sure on the campus later on, but at the convergence, is there going to be talk about different protocols and ways to make people can make contact?
Yes, we will be talking about some of the different protocols. So every night we have an experiencers talk and then an experiencers circle on the campus out in the soccer field. And there we will be engaging in discussions for people to share their favorite contact modalities. On the first night of that experiencer circle, Jimmy and I will be presenting the latest data on the radio contact modality and the new name that we're giving it and why we're giving it a new name, and how exciting that is with these radios. I just had them, as everyone probably knows on your program by now, these radios, these Baofeng handheld two-way radios are incredibly important tools for our movement to allow people who are skeptics that are more scientifically oriented and maybe less inclined to try a meditative practice for initiating contact. This gives them an option to become engaged, and they can do their own experiments and see what happens, because we have something we believe is repeatable and consistent and will pique the curiosity of anyone who really wants to dive into this. And it's amazing that it works the way it does. It's fascinating, and we think it's going to open the door for people that would otherwise maybe be skeptical about getting involved in any kind of meditative group contact initiative.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mark, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about the event and talking about the campus. Would you have any parting words for all the listeners here?
Yeah, I would just encourage people to come to the campus. We're going to be doing ongoing events. And so if you use the Save 100, the James Save 100 promo coupon, you're going to get $100 off. It's $149 for a 5-day event. You'll want to be there. If you're watching this program right now, that means you've stuck through to the end. This will be the best $149 that you will have ever spent, because this is historic. We are doing something that's never been done before, and you'll be on the ground floor watching this evolve, this historic event evolve into something that will grow and become something that you potentially can become a member of, this movement, and help initiate global contact.
And say people miss something, they can always get it later on, like later in the week, or
Yeah,
the
only thing is that we are keeping the price at $249 with $100 savings until the 16th. So if you buy before on the 15th of August, which is just a few days away, or before, that price of $249 will be steady, but we are going to increase the price 2 days before the event, because we don't want a flood of people ordering tickets, because we're human beings and people procrastinate, and we're worried about getting so many tickets sold in the last 2 days that it overwhelms our ability to onboard people. So if you buy your ticket now, you can actually download the software immediately and come onto the campus and start getting your avatar configured and customized, and then learn how to navigate your avatar around campus. And as you know, James, it takes a little bit of time to get that all set up. It's not a lot of time, but it really helps because people typically can have problems with their mic and their speaker. And we have
Yeah.
volunteers standing by who can help people. We have tech support ready, and so that will help us. So we're going to keep this price at $249 until Sunday, this coming Sunday, and after that it goes up to $369. So be sure to get your ticket as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on, Mark, and we'll see you there.
All right, thank you, James. Have a great day.
You too.